Podcast.
Touchdown Ram! Recovered by the Chargers. Touchdown UCLA!
With USC great and NFL stud, Frostee Rucker.
The Trojans back in front!
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's going on, Los Angeles? And welcome to another edition of the LA Football Podcast here on the LA Football Network, LAFBnetwork.com. Always live as well on Believe Podcast Network. We are everywhere you listen to podcasts. Also on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at LAFB Network. All of our podcasts, 7 of them, go up on our YouTube channel, so you can view us. Film breakdown goes up on the YouTube channel, amongst other things. So LAFB Network on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. Really helps us out as we continue to grow this brand and give you the best possible content for your Los Angeles football teams. Got a great show today, recapping the Rams joint practice of Cowboys, or Rams joint practice with the Cowboys, I should say. Cameron DaSilva of the Rams Wire is going to jump on with me as we talk camp, talk joint practice. Have a lot of fun. Cam's a great guy, does great work over there with that USA Today network. And then Dan Wolkenstein, you guys know him from the Chargers Unlimited podcast right here on the LA Football Network. Was at FanFest, Chargers FanFest at SoFi Stadium. So he's going to come on and talk about some takeaways from that, what he liked, what he didn't like. So we'll get all into that. Always good stuff. We've been putting out a lot of live shows, but had to get the audio version, the podcast version up again today. So thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoy it. As always, the LA Football Podcast brought to you by betonline.ag. Betonline.ag, 50% welcome bonus, whether you sign up on mobile or desktop. Head there today. All you need is an email address to sign up. Season's 4 weeks away. You can pick your MVP winners. You can pick your Super Bowl winners. You can just start betting on each week, parlaying those bets to win some extra cash. Betonline.ag, your wagering place. Like I said, 50% welcome bonus. That's free money. You know, sign up with $100, get free $50, whether you're on mobile or desktop. BetOnline.ag. All right, keep it short and sweet. Let's jump into these conversations. We'll start with our Rams section of the show. Talk with Cameron DaSilva of the Rams Wire. All right, Rams fans, as I mentioned in the intro, excited to have on again. It's been, probably had you on almost exactly a year ago. We were talking the season and doing a schedule breakdown, but having Cameron DaSilva, he's the great editor of the Rams Wire for the USA Today Network. Cam, what's going on, man? How you doing, brother?
Good. How are you, Ryan? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, I'm great. Can't complain. Life is good. Camp is, midway through or so, and we got preseason football coming up in just a week. So I wanted to get you on just to kind of talk about your thoughts of camp, your thoughts of this new Rams team. It seems like in the offseason, all these conversations are the same in a sense, but now that we actually seen some practices, seen some players go, we can talk a little bit more in depth about it. But yeah, man, it's been a while since I've had you on. So what's good? What's new? Any new golf excursions we didn't know about? I know you're a big avid golfer. Anything fun to report other than just football?
Just the weekly rounds. I was down in Myrtle Beach about 3 weeks ago. Played a few rounds down there with my dad and some family, and otherwise just playing up here in Connecticut.
How are the courses down in Myrtle?
They're nice. Yeah. Completely different than what we have up here in Connecticut. A little bit tougher, but really nice.
I've always wanted, that's like me and the guy try to plan like a guy's trip every now and then. Now it's been forever since I have a kid and married, but we've Myrtle Beach has been that place that we've like, if we could afford to fly cross country, that's be one of those spots. Is it like, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, we actually drove down 12 hours with 2 dogs in the car. It wasn't too bad, but it's a nice area, busy area, but it's nice down there.
Yeah. Did you play one of like the beach courses or like on like ocean views?
No, just there was a little bit more inland, kind of like a link style golf a little bit.
Love it. That's still great. So, well, good. Glad to hear the game's going good. Hopefully one day we'll be able to link up and, no pun intended, and play. But yeah, man. So this Rams team, obviously a lot's happened since we've talked last. I've talked about it extensively, but with the addition of Matthew Stafford and all that good stuff. So let's start with this before we kind of get into camp. What has been your expectation of this team? Everyone's talked about, Super Bowl or bust. This is a team built to win now. I mean, we say that every year with the Rams. So it's the national media like pumping this, like, oh, they're trying to win now. It's like, well, we've been doing this same song and dance in the offseason. It seems like since McVay got here. But what was just your initial expectation once the Stafford trade went through of what this Rams team could do in this 2021 season?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was Super Bowl or bust. I hate to use that term because you can still have a successful season even if you don't win a Super Bowl. But just seeing what they were able to do last year, win a playoff game, get to the second round with Jared Goff playing as poorly, quite frankly, as he was, and even being injured against in that Packers game, and everything that happened with the team, just with the defense carrying them, I really, really have high expectations for this team because anything short of making it to the second round of the playoffs or winning a playoff game, winning a couple of postseason games would be a disappointment. They go all in for Stafford, and now McVay has his handpicked quarterback, which he didn't have with Goff. So some pressure on him and Stafford joining a team that is really constructed well around him with good receivers, a decent O-line, great defense. It was supposed to be a good running game. Now we don't really know with Cam Akers going down. It still should be solid with Darrell Henderson, but everything is set up around him to really have success in his best season, and I think that's what we're going to see from him. I think he's going to have a good year with McVay and with the play calling and a lot of play action and these jet motion and really just mixing things up for him and putting him in good positions to play well and get the ball into his playmakers' hands.
Yeah, I think everything I've seen in camp so far is just such I don't want to say night and day difference because that makes Goff seem like absolutely horrible, and he wasn't horrible, just had some letdowns and whatnot, but it is a major difference seeing what Stafford does in camp, seeing what they're able to do with different play designs, and you're really seeing McVay, his offensive prowess kind of come to life now, because it's like they attempted some things and then they kind of pull the reins back a little bit in years past and simplified it almost, and now it's like you can really see these things go, and especially with Deshaun Jackson in the mix. So just on the offensive side, do you see this as a top 5 unit now with Stafford? Do you think there's going to be some growing pains, or do you think they'll get that all figured out in camp and they'll be all systems go by week 1 against Chicago?
There might be some growing pains in the beginning, especially with that offensive line, the interior. You don't know exactly what you're going to get with Corbett at center. I like to think that he's going to transition well from guard to center after seeing the way that he played last year, but he struggled at center with the Browns, so you don't know exactly what you're getting. Bobby Evans is stepping into a position he didn't play in college and really didn't play much last year either at right guard, so you don't know exactly what you're going to get with him either. I think teams are really going to try to pressure the Rams up the middle because they do have 2 solid tackles with Whitworth and Havenstein on the outside. So interior pressure is a quarterback's enemy. It's the worst thing that can happen for them. So if I know Stafford has good mobility, he can escape the pocket to the outside if he does get interior pressure. But I think there could be some growing pains with that offensive line a little bit in the beginning. I don't expect much of a hiccup between Stafford and his receivers developing chemistry and kind of getting on the same page. It seems like him and Djax are already doing that in practice with the deep shots. So might be some growing pains with that offensive line, but I still have expectations of this team being top 10, top 5 offensively this year.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the chemistry is already there 100% for the receivers. So which is great to see. And this is going up against a, former number 1 defense. Obviously you have the loss of John Johnson and Troy Hill and Brandon Staley as the coordinator, but they were still the number 1 defense. They'll have a lot of returning pieces. And obviously it's different in camp. You can't tackle. You're not hitting guys. You're not flying, to the ball, but there's still, you see some things that are like, okay, this offense is doing some things that are clicking. And yeah, I agree with you on the offense and offensive line. And there may be some, I don't think a huge drop off, but yeah, definitely we'll see how they mesh together, how these players play in their new roles and their positions, how, Coach Kevin Carberry is different than what we saw with the former offensive line coach. So there could be some changes there, just some nuances or stuff like that. We have a new run game coordinator. Also, obviously Coach Henderson's been there for a while now, but now he's a new guy that's kind of planning the run game during the practice session. So just some differences, but I don't think there'll be a huge thing. And I agree with you. I think this is going to be a top 5 unit just from what I've seen in camp so far. You mentioned the running game with Cam Akers. Sean McVay has been pretty implicit that they're happy with their group. He is super high on Darrell Henderson. He has been, I think, ever since they drafted him. Big on Xavier Jones. They have some other set pieces there behind him as well. They drafted Jake Funt this year. What's just your feeling on the running game? And do you think, with your GM hat on, should they add a guy before camp is done, or do you feel good about the guys they have in camp right now?
Right now, I would kind of see what they have with these running backs behind Henderson. Obviously, he's going to be that starter, but you look at their depth chart right now, and you have Henderson, Jake Funk, and Xavier Jones as your top three most likely. I don't know that you can go into a season with just those three guys being the ones that you can count on to consistently run the ball and stay healthy. Henderson has had injury concerns. Funk obviously tore his ACL twice in college. So there's some durability concerns, especially at that running back position outside of Xavier Jones. So I don't know that you can go into the season with those three. Maybe you add Raymond Clay as the fourth guy and kind of the kick return specialist. But I would see what these guys can do. And by all accounts that I've heard and seen, it seems like they're having a really strong camp. I would say the running game is probably the hardest part to determine, kind of gauge how it's doing, because these guys aren't tackling. It's just thuds with the pads and they're not wrapping up. And so it's hard to tell when a guy is breaking a tackle and when it's just the nature of practice where these guys aren't hitting each other. But there's not a lot of guys out there that I would go out and rush to sign. I'm not signing Todd Gurley. I'm not signing these other guys that really are available. I don't think LaShawn McCoy or Le'Veon Bell has much to offer now. Maybe you give him a shot later in camp or in the preseason and into the regular season if guys really just don't produce the way that they're expected to. But it's going to be about finding a mix between keeping Henderson healthy and using him as the number one running back. Xavier Jones, I think, is a talented player who has some potential, and Funk, he graded as one of the most athletic running backs in the class. So there's potential there, but there's also some concerns about experience and durability and just overall depth and talent.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see better, like you mentioned, once these preseason games roll in. Thank God we have 3 this year. I know there's like veterans that don't want the preseason anymore, but for these rookies and fringe players, I think it's actually very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
See, and in the Rams offense or the Rams team, that veterans don't play anyway. So there's nothing to worry about them. Day off to watch the young guys go out there and play. Because in training camp, and I've said this many times on the show while we've been covering it, is, your running backs, all you're really looking for in training camp is, are they hitting the correct hole?
Mm-hmm.
How's their vision? Are they picking up the correct blocking assignments in pass pro? And that's really all you can see. You can't see their actual true. You can see they have some jump, some twitch, some burst in their individual routes or individual running game, but you can't really truly see. So they're really banking on, obviously, the great Thomas Brown about what he thinks about this group. Sean McVay keeps building that guy up. He's going to be here for a new
He's trying to get him hired somewhere else.
Yeah, he'll be hired real quick next offseason, whether it's for an offensive coordinator or maybe even make that leap to a coach like Zach Taylor did. But so what I think, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, I agree with you. I don't think anyone that's available right now, there's no need to go after, no rush to go after. Stick with their guys who they have. But there's a lot of talented backs that will not make the first round of cuts on their team. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Rams maybe go after one of those guys that gets cut by one of their teams, but has been in a camp for these 2 weeks and not someone just been sitting on their couch. Do you think that's a definite possibility?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's kind of the time that you would consider picking someone up. I think the final cut down day is like August 31st. So it's about a week and a half before the season starts. That's enough time to identify someone, pick them up, get him a little bit acclimated to the offense. And really the running back position, there's not like a ton you're not signing a quarterback who has to learn the entire playbook or a wide receiver who has to learn the entire route tree. We saw with CJ Anderson 3 years ago, 2018, they pick him up off the streets. He helps carry him to the playoffs and through the playoffs and all the way to the Super Bowl. And it doesn't take much to find a productive running back, which is kind of why I was against them drafting Cam Akers last year, even as good as he looks. But it's just, you can find production from the running back position very cheaply and with little resources. So if a guy gets cut in final cut downs and they identify him as someone who can contribute, and maybe Funk is just not, he's running into some injury troubles or just not picking it up and doing exactly what the Rams want him to do, then that's when you would go out. But I don't think anyone sitting out there right now is someone I would rush to go sign.
Yeah, I agree. And they're happy with their guys in house. And then, if they can add, because every year there's a running back or just a player in general that's kind of a surprise cut for every team
Mhm.
out there. So there'll be a running back that gets cut. You're like, oh, that'd be a nice depth piece, or because they're not picking up a guy to come in and start. It'd be a guy that
Right.
hopefully, knock on wood, there's no injuries. But the last thing you really want as a team is picking a guy up off the street in week 8. Like, you want to be able to have the
Right.
on your roster, on your practice squad, to just stay in house. So if anything, pick up a guy they can just put on their practice squad. And I don't know their waiver priority off the top of my head, but that would be definitely something to watch. So
Mhm.
on defense, we know how good this defense can be. There's obviously the new addition of Raheem Morris that is going to keep some of Brandon Staley's concepts, but obviously wrinkle in some of his own. At camp, I've seen a lot of guys lining up all over the place. We've seen Terrell Burgess play some nickel. We've seen Robert Rochelle in there with the ones every now and then. Obviously, he's a little banged up right now. So his defense, I think, has a lot of talent, but also a lot of unknown also, just because when you're the number one reigning defense, you lose key players and your coach. We talked about the offensive line continuity. There's going to be a lot of continuity changes for this defense. So what's your expectation of what they can be and how good they can be? Or is it just as long as they have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, they're going to be a top unit?
Well, I mean, if you have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, you really shouldn't finish below the top 10 in
Yeah.
defense overall with just those two guys. But I mean, you can't expect this group to come back and be the number one defense again. I'm sure the players kind of expect that and hope for that. But with the guys that they lost, it's hard to set your expectations there. Troy Hill was an important player, versatile. He could play inside, he could play outside. He's probably going to be replaced by a guy like David Long, who hasn't really shown much in the NFL as a former third-round pick. Terrell Burgess is a guy I really like. He can play the nickel, like you said. He can play safety. So some versatility there. But you have questions at cornerback. You have not major questions at safety, but losing John Johnson is pretty big. That's pretty significant. Your signal caller, one of the best safeties in the league. So you have to fill that hole. You're looking at outside linebacker opposite Leonard Floyd, where you have Terrell Lewis, who you don't know how much he's going to be able to give you health-wise and consistency. Okoronkwo has been injured before. Justin Hollins is a guy I like, but he's not going to be a prolific pass rusher who's going to have 10 sacks in a season. You're still trying to figure things out at the inside linebacker position. Defensive end with Brockers gone. I like Donald and the combination of him and Sebastian Joseph Day on the interior, but you got to hope that Ashawn Robinson, and now that he's slimmed down and a little bit leaner, he can step up as more of a pass rusher and just grab hold of that position that Michael Brockers had. For sure, there's questions on this defense, but when you have Aaron Donald and Darius Williams and Jalen Ramsey, and even Leonard Floyd, I give him credit for having a good season. I think this should be a top 10 defense without a doubt.
Yeah. It's going to be a fascinating unit to watch, and we'll get to a little bit about the Cowboys joint practice here and how this unit did. But it's been crazy to me to see that through camp, Justin Hollins has been the starter alongside Leonard Floyd. I know Raheem Morris loves big, long, lanky guys, which is obviously Leonard Floyd to a T, and Justin Hollins is a big, big dude out of Oregon. And he's been lining up with the ones every practice. I know they've liked what they've seen out of him. I'm curious to see his production, what he'll be able to do. But Leonard Floyd had his best year last year in sack production. So maybe with the addition of, Floyd and Donald, Justin Hollins can hopefully do that. And then we can see Lewis and Okoronkwo as those set pieces, those NASCAR packages where they're not forced into starting just because Okoronkwo hasn't done it. Terrell Lewis just can't stay healthy. So if he's not like a starter, hope those knees hold up. Maybe it's not as much pressure on him and he can just be in there for a few plays a game and actually be very dynamic, which is what they saw at Alabama. So it'll be really funny not funny, but it'll be really fascinating to watch that grouping for sure. And then inside backers, touch on that quickly, Cam, because Traven Howard is kind of a guy that a lot of people thought was going to start last year, got injured. Now going into this year, they like his chances because of his athleticism and his silent ability. But you still have Troy Reeder, who I know fans are really mixed on, but he played well in spurts last year. The coaching staff like him a lot. Micah Kaiser still on this unit. Kenny Young has been a starter with the ones the entire camp thus far. And then you have the rookie coming in Ernest Jones. So how do you see this inside backer core? Because I don't see them, after keeping only 3 last year, keeping more than 5. And that's 5 right there I just listed.
Right. Yeah. This is a group that coming into this off season and training camp, I kind of viewed them all except for Ernest Jones as guys who could be starters or guys who could also be cut. I mean, there's just so much variation between them. I could see I could have seen Kenny Young being cut. I think they would save a couple $1 million against the cap if he was released, just because I wasn't overly impressed with how he played last year as that kind of second inside linebacker. But McVay has raved about him. Like you said, he's been running with the ones, and he's apparently had a very good camp. So that's a good sign for him, and he can kind of be that veteran leader that takes hold of the middle of the defense. Micah Kaiser and Troy Reeder, kind of similar players, just inconsistent. Need to see more from them. Ernest Jones is a guy that I didn't love in the draft, but he's a smart player, and they talked about how he kind of has a GPS to the football and just has good spatial awareness and knows where the play is going and where to be. And Traven Howard is a guy I'm intrigued by, former safety. He has some range, and he's on the smaller side, but when you're talking about a weak side linebacker who can just run sideline to sideline and play free and play behind his defensive line, he's a guy who I think can have a productive season. And he was, like you said, he was expected to start last year before getting hurt. So I think that's a big lift. I don't know, now that Kenny Young is playing so well, that I don't know who's going to be the odd man out. I don't think they can keep more than 5, and we just rattle off 5 names there. So maybe they go with 5, maybe they keep 4 and release someone like Kaiser or Reeder. I think Ernest Jones and Traven Howard are guys that you kind of have to keep around. Obviously, Ernest Jones being a 3rd-round pick, but Traven Howard too. I mean, you want to see what this guy can do on the field, and you don't want to stash him on the practice squad. You want to get him on the field and see what he can do, and he can be a nice complement as that weak side backer. I would say it's one of the weaker positions on the team, but a team that or a group that has decent depth, and if an injury does occur, you can almost plug and play them and switch them out.
Yeah, extremely well-rounded and very, like you said, any of these 5 could be cut, any of these 5 could start.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Depends
right,
on
exactly
what side of the coin you look at it as.
Right.
I like to be a glass half full, so we'll call it a good thing.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to put you on the spot then. So this defense with all the overture and with some new players coming up, with the new coordinator, give me a name that you think could be a surprise starter on this unit. We talked about a bunch, but just a guy that, either a rookie or an incomer or a guy that's just been there around, but actually you think will start, that may be surprising. Because I think there's going to be definitely 3 or 4 new starters on this unit, but who's one that you think would be a little surprising to you?
So I don't know if he's going to be a starter, but Bobby Brown, he's kind of a versatile defensive lineman. Obviously he had the thumb injury, so that sets him back a little bit, but even playing through the cast, I think he'll be a good contributor. I think Taylor Rapp can be probably a starter at safety, but more of like that kind of dime backer type player that comes in sub packages and can play almost be that inside linebacker in obvious passing situations where you get a little bit more range when you know that the offense is going to be throwing the ball. I really think he can be a good player. He had a good rookie season, kind of took a step back last year with the injuries and just inconsistent play. But I think Rapp will be a good, solid player, probably a starter next to Jordan Fuller. Not necessarily in week 1, but at some point in the season between him and Terrell Burgess, I think they're both going to be really good, valuable players to this defense, just with their versatility. And I think they're going to be good tacklers in the open field, which is critical at the safety position and cornerback in general. So I would highlight those 2, especially if David Long doesn't necessarily step up the way that the Rams need him to. I would look to Taylor Rapp to kind of be that. He can play first and second down at safety. He can come in on third down and play almost a linebacker role, and then Burgess just flip-flopping between safety and nickel and covering the slot and moving around the defense.
Yeah, I definitely agree with those. And Rapp, I've talked a lot this offseason. I thought Burgess would end up playing him out of a starting job. I knew that all 3 would be very involved, all 3 in some capacity, no matter what. But I thought on the starter, the depth chart, it would be Fuller and Burgess. And so far through camp, it's been Fuller and Rapp. Rapp's been the guy deep, in the box, but he's been the second safety out there with Burgess coming in and nickel and to spell him. So, kudos to Rapp for having a great offseason. Again, fits that build that Raheem Morris loves. Tall, big, strong, striker, can hit. So he kind of fits that mold like we're talking about Justin Hollins. So, those are good ones. I can't wait to see Bobby Brown truly get in there and play, because he can be that Michael Brockers Phil guy once he's healthy in the system. I know Coach Henderson loves the guy and thinks he has a ton of potential. So we'll see. And it's good to be able to have Ashawn Robinson, who's a vet that slimmed down, to be able to give him time. And It's a good unit. It's a fun unit to talk because I feel like the offense, I've talked about this before, the offense is pretty set. Like we know
it is.
Everyone was like, oh, who's going to play center? We all know now it's Corbett. He's started every single rep
Yep.
at center so far. Receivers, we know are starting 5. Like it's going to be fun to see how Tutu Atwell is actually integrated once he's healthy or once he's truly integrated off COVID, now that he's back.
Yep.
We know the running backs. Obviously sucks about Cam Akers, but we knew it was going to be Cam and Darryl split. Now we know it's going to be Darryl heavy. The defense is where it's interesting and where there's going to be a lot of question marks going into the season. So
yeah, I think really the only spots on offense that you can talk about being kind of up for debate a little bit is the number 2 tight end spot. I don't know who's going to earn that spot between Munt and Hopkins and Harris. And then kind of the number 3, number 4 receiver. It seems like Deshaun Jackson is going to be that number 3 guy right now, but they have Van Jefferson, who's a good player too, and they're going to want to get him involved. So interested to see how that kind of shakes out and who earns more snaps. And obviously Jackson has had his injury history, but right out of the gate to see who plays more between Jackson and Jefferson. I would assume it's going to be Deshaun Jackson with those deep shots and kind of taking the top off the defense.
Yeah, and in today's NFL, it kind of depends how, or not necessarily today's NFL, but at least with the Rams scheme, it kind of depends how you define wide receiver 3 in terms of packages and personnel groupings.
Yep.
Because I think we'll see them both in different situations, but can't understate it enough. Jackson's had a phenomenal camp. Has looked fantastic. Like looks like the fountain of youth struck him, and it's exciting. Like I want to be like temper expectations because we're going against no pads, no hitting, and this is the second week of camp. We got to wait till we're in week 8, but it looks like the best $1 million signing in the history of the NFL 2 weeks into camp.
That's awesome. That's good to hear.
Yeah, it's been good. And Cam, I can tell you right now that unfortunately Bryson Hopkins will not be tight end 2 at this point. The guy hasn't even ran with any of the 1s or 2s. He's been with 3s and 4s for the most part and hasn't done much. So hopefully he can break into that at some point. So but I wanted to talk a little bit about this Cowboys joint practice. First of all, I mean, neither of you or I were here or were there. We did check out some of the live stream. We had a guy there from LAFB kind of, keeping track of things. So we were able to watch from afar. But what's just your thought overall on joint practices? Do you think it's valuable? Do you think I've heard some coaches say they like those better than preseason games? They can get more work in, get more reps in. It seems like every joint practice, there's a fight of some kind, which there was again, which we'll get to. But just what's your thought overall on joint practices with other teams?
So I think they're valuable in the situation that the Rams are in, where they're not playing starters in the preseason, not even giving Stafford a rep, not one throw, not one drive. Same goes for Darrell Henderson. He's not going to play. Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, they're not going to play. So you kind of have to get these guys situations where they can go up against another team, get different looks from receivers, because Jalen Ramsey going up against Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Deshaun Jackson every day, he kind of probably gets a feel for what they're going to do and how they run routes and things like that. So to get him in a situation where he's going up against CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper and other receivers, and then they're going to go against the Raiders too. So they're going to have some different looks from them with Henry Ruggs and the guys that they have. I think it is valuable. McVay likes it because it's almost more of a controlled setting where, like I said, they're not fully hitting, they're not tackling, they're just thumping with their pads and not wrapping up and taking guys down to the field, which is what you're going to do in the preseason. And that kind of leads to more injuries. Fortunately, it sounds like nobody really got hurt. I heard that Tutu crashed into a padded cart or something along the sideline, but he bounced up and seemed fine, according to McVay. So you like to come away with these practices without injuries and getting good work in situationally. You can run red zone, you can run 11 on 11 and really produce the kind of situations that you would have in a game. Whereas in a preseason game, it's just kind of whatever happens. And you have guys hitting and tackling and more risk for injury, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, I think, why coaches probably like it too. I heard the number 1 defense looked pretty good. It helps when the Cowboys don't have Dak Prescott. Obviously, they're going with their number 2 quarterbacks. That certainly helps. But from all indications, where the number 1 defense looked very good, secondary looked good. You kind of mentioned, David Long going against CeeDee Lamb, these other guys, and did get beat a couple times. But that's what they want to see. They want to put these players in these situations 2 weeks into camp to see stress test how they perform come week 1, and if they're ready to start or not, or they need to look at different avenues. So you want to see guys get beat at this point and then fix those things, intricate details, and be better on later down the line. So I thought the defense looked very good. The offense, for the most part, was clicking, doing things well. There was the fight we heard about and saw video of. Seems to happen every training camp when there's joint practices. We've seen the famous video of the Rams and Chargers when they've had joint practices. I was there 2 years ago, there 3 years ago, when they had their little skirmishes. It's always, as a fan, kind of exciting, but as someone covering the team, you're like, oh, don't do anything stupid that's going to get someone hurt or fined or this.
Right.
So it was Aaron Donald. For those who don't know, I'm sure everyone knows, but it was Aaron Donald against one of the Dallas Cowboys offensive linemen, and just got into it a little bit. I don't know if it was just a little too much back and forth, too much grabbing. For me, I like seeing Aaron Donald getting fiery in a practice. Like, it shows just how he never shuts off. If the helmet's on, the guy's ready to roll. Doesn't matter if it's Sunday night football in prime time or up in Oxnard, California, on a crappy field that looks like half the grass was burnt, rolling against the Cowboys. So he looks ready to go. What's your thought on training camp fights?
Yeah, they're always going to happen. You hear coaches talk about how they don't want fights. They don't want things to get out of hand. I think Mike McCarthy said before the practice that there was no way he was going to let the Cowboys get into any fights, and that was completely off limits and not anything that he wanted to see from his guys. And we had two of them essentially with Aaron Donald and Connor Williams getting into it, and then Kenny Young threw a little punch at the ball when Tony Pollard was way out of bounds and kind of retaliated a little bit. It wasn't a fight, but they got into it a little bit. As long as nobody gets hurt, it's good to see the intensity and the competitiveness. And especially, like you said, a guy like Aaron Donald, he has nothing to prove whatsoever. He's already established. He knows he's the best player in the NFL. Everyone knows it. Yeah. And he's going up against a guy like Connor Williams, who's holding his own and doing his best against Donald, and things just boiled over a little bit, and it's the heat of competition. And McVay even said he doesn't mind it. It's guys just talking a little bit and getting into the tempers boiling over a little bit, but no harm, no foul, as long as nobody gets injured and nothing crazy happens, which it doesn't seem like anything did.
Yeah, no one was hurt, and Connor Williams is a big dude, 6'5", 320 out of Texas. So, but you're going against a future Hall of Famer. Last night was the Hall of Fame assignment. I'm pretty sure I saw Donald's bus in the background, just waiting for to hang it up. I wanted to quickly mention that you mentioned Kenny Young and the Tony Pollard thing, because you saw it all over Twitter, and some people calling it what a dirty play by Kenny Williams, punching after the play. And I just wanted to at least say this, because if you go to camp often, or you go to practices often, or even not really games, because actually it would be a flag in games, but camp specifically, defenders are told by coaches to punch the ball at all times until the play is over, sometimes even after the play is over. So if you're at camp and you see Rams against Rams, they're punching the ball out all the time. The play is clearly done out of bounds, and they're still punching at the ball. It's just what defenders do in camp, trying to get in, maybe a little bit annoying, but also it's training yourselves to always be in that mode. And so what I saw was nothing a problem at all. Is the guy had just been pushed out of bounds, punched at the ball, punched it out. Obviously, Tony Pollard didn't like it and tried to go after him. Kenny Young just trotted back and looked like he was. People are like, "Oh, he punched and ran," but it's like, no, he was just punching the ball, and then that's the end of the play. So I don't know what you thought about it, but to me, I saw it and I thought, okay, that doesn't seem like an issue at all. But a lot of people kind of like, oh my goodness, what a dirty little thing. And
Cowboys fans especially freaked out a little bit over that, and they were talking about Kenny running back to the play, and like you said, he punched at the ball and went back to the play. He didn't get in Pollard's face or do anything to instigate it any further than that.
Yeah, so anyone that said that, go to a practice of your teams and watch your defenders, because they'll do that the entire practice. It's just what coaches teach. And if you played football, you know that, because coaches teach it. The whistle guys do it. And as a receiver, I'm like, bro, like, I'm running back to the huddle. What are you doing punching the ball? But overall, I think a good joint practice. I think there's things to be excited about as they go into their week 1 preseason matchup with the Chargers. So let's end with this, Cam. Appreciate the time. Cameron DaSilva of the Rams Wire of USA Today. Are you doing any podcasting or radio stuff yet, or keeping it to print?
No, just doing print. I had a podcast a couple of years ago, kind of just fizzled out and not necessarily ran out of time, but was doing some other writing and things like that. So really just guesting on podcasts and radio spots, not hosting my own.
Okay. Well, we'll have you on often throughout the season, so if you're willing.
Absolutely.
As they go to the Chargers, or they're at home, Bolster the stadium, but it is a home game for the Rams hosting the Chargers. Just quickly, what's your expectations for this game? We won't see any starters, probably by either team, but for sure for the Rams. So I guess what are 2 or 3 things you're looking for, whether it be a specific player, specific scheme, specific grouping, just 2 or 3 things you're looking for in this first preseason action?
I'm actually excited to see Bryce Perkins play because he was an undrafted rookie last year. Obviously, we didn't have the preseason, so it's been hard to get a good look and feel for how he's done. And obviously, the Rams like him, keeping him around all last year on the practice squad, and then keeping him in camp this year. So I'm excited to see what he can do. Interested to see what Jake Funk can do at the running back position because of how important he is as that third or second running back, depending on how he plays. You really need, we saw last year with the Rams going 3 deep at running back with Henderson, Akers, and Brown. So going to be important to see how he plays. I don't know how much Tutu Atwell is going to do because of how he kind of got a late start, but excited to see what he can do. Obviously, that speed is very apparent. I want to see how small he looks compared to these other NFL players and how he handles. Now he's going to be hit in a preseason game rather than just practice. So those are a couple of guys on offense that I want to see. David Long, I would assume he's probably going to play because he hasn't fully locked down that starter role yet. I want to see how he does against these Charger receivers, even if Keenan Allen doesn't play and they don't have their top guys out there. So those are a few players that I'll be kind of keeping an eye on. These rookies, Ernest Brown, Ernest Jones, I'm assuming is going to play. So really just the first-year guys or the rookies from last year who we didn't get to see in the preseason. Those are the types of players that I want to see kind of step up and see what they can do in a live game situation.
Absolutely. I think those are all we'll be watching. And the last one that I'll mention is I want to see the second offensive line unit, how they look, because, injuries happen, unfortunately. And we want to see how this depth is on a unit that spent no draft picks on the offensive line, to the chagrin of my fans. 2 years ago, I remember being at camp and watching the second unit, and it just did not look good. It was when they drafted David Edwards and Bobby Evans. So obviously they were rookies, so a lot to learn in that. But the second unit looked pretty poor. And then we saw in that year, 2019, some injuries happened, and the offensive line was one of the worst units of the entire NFL. And then they bounced back in a big way last year. So I just want to see how that depth looks in case, bad things happen, how we're able to be succinct in that. So a lot of fun storylines to look for in this preseason game. And I think a lot of fun will be had just seeing football again live in person. I will be there. So if you need anything, if you need any eyes on anything, you let me know, because I'll be there watching live. So Cameron DaSilva of the Rams Wire on USA Today. Bro, I appreciate you. It's great catching up. Keep shooting them straight in the fairway, and we'll hope to have you on again soon here as the season kicks off. All right.
Thanks, man. Always fun to come on. Thanks for having me on.
All right, bro. Appreciate you. Be safe. We'll talk soon. All right. Before we get into the segment with Dan Wilkenstein, got to talk to you quick about my friends at Manscaped. Attention to all of you listeners, all of you across the galaxy, all the way from Australia to Houston. Do we have a male hair growth problem? If so, our friends at Manscaped have cleared you for takeoff with their fourth generation and brand new Lawnmower 4.0. Kick your pubes to the next planet with the Performance Package 4.0. The orbits in your pants. This is the first time I'm reading this, so this is interesting. Will feel like you're in zero gravity when you use the best tools for the job from the best in the business in male grooming. Join the over 2 million men, that's right, 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get your rocket ready for takeoff by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code LAFB20. Once again, that's 20% off and free shipping, free worldwide shipping when you use my code LAFB20 at manscaped.com. Once again, 20% off, free shipping, LAFB20, manscaped.com for a clean trinity and beyond. Your space balls. Well, thank you. All right. That was fun. All right. Well, let's get into our Chargers Talk About FanFest with Dan Wilkenstein. All right, Chargers fans, second part of the show today. Excited to have on Dan Wilkenstein, Chargers Unleashed, part of the LAFB network family. We've been doing live stuff all week, but figured I'd have you on like my actual podcast here because you were at Chargers Fan Fest yesterday. So we want to get into the nitty gritty of what went down. But first of all, my man, Dan, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. This is fun. Always enjoy coming on your show. FanFest was great. I am great. Can't wait to kind of talk about this. Honestly, it was a really big day for Chargers fans. Not gonna lie, I was a little apprehensive or just kind of anxious because this could have gone one of two ways. It could have either made it a lot worse of a narrative about the Chargers fan base or the opposite. And good news is Chargers fans, the Bolt fam, showed out yesterday, and it was very refreshing. That place was pumping, was electric. It was a great time.
Love it. Yeah, it looked like an awesome time, and it seems like we record together every show now. So basically, we're just co-hosts at this point. So I'm sure many people have heard us, but when we're at every event, it helps. You got eyes there. We got four eyes now. So, but dude, the event looked great. Offspring was there as well to perform. I think I saw in Popper's article, and then you tweeted out about 30,000 strong, which I believe was they did not want us because I know when I went to Rams open camp or open practice back before training camp back in June or whatever it was, they capped it at half capacity. It was more of a stress test for the stadium too. They wanted fans to come and see, but they wanted to see how parking would go. They wanted to see how the vendors would go.
Yeah.
They want to just have the first event 75,000 strong. So I think the Chargers were doing the same, and people were probably questioning, wow, only 30,000 showed up, but I'm pretty sure they maxed it at a certain number for the same thing, a stress test for the actual employees of the stadium to see. With that being said, though, how did it feel in there? I mean, was it loud? Were the people proud? Was the excitement? Was the energy? What was it like just being in the stadium watching live football?
Man, I gotta say, getting in there, getting to your seats, listening to the cannons being fired, it's way louder in there than it was at Qualcomm. Not even a comparison. Or Dignity Health. I mean, it was loud. Even though, and again, 30,000 people, let's just call it 30,000, to be at a random Sunday afternoon scrimmage.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people for a scrimmage game. Now, sure, could there have been 50,000? I don't know. Were they capping it? Who knows? But to see that many people at a scrimmage, I mean, you saw people at the front when gates were opened. I mean, there were lines further than the eye can see. And so I hope this puts to bed a lot of the tired narrative of the whole no fans thing. It's so spoiled at this point. It's so not true. And so Chargers fans, you should be proud. I think we've done a very good job in the last year and a half or so, especially with Herbert and everything. But getting in there, to answer your question, was awesome. That stadium is so nice. I had a really nice view at the 50 and the Oculus. I forget what they call it technically now. That screen is impressive.
Yeah.
We had Daniel Jeremiah and Matt Money Smith calling the plays. They were great. But that place got loud. There were 30,000 people or so. But I'm imagining that with 80,000 people, it's going to be deafening. It was so fun. The acoustics in there are great. And honestly, the weather in there was nice. My wife came with me yesterday, and she was like, wow, this is beautiful. I might take a nap. This is nice.
No napping, Kristen. No napping. Yeah, it's just a beautiful venue. And I pulled this photo up. This was, I think it was either before or after practice, but in the what do you call it? The promenade or whatnot of the stadium. Just fans showing out. And, yeah, I hope, man. I mean, that narrative is going to take a long time just because that's what the national media loves pumping for some reason. I don't really know why. You think it'd be in their best interest to pump the opposite narrative, but
you started hearing folks nationally say a few things positive about the fans show out yesterday at SoFi. So it's getting there. And by the way, that picture, I don't remember if that was at the concert or not, but there was also a time at the concert. Did you hear about the beetle eating?
Yes, I did see that. Yeah. Some dude ate a beetle or whatever.
Some dude ate a beetle live. It was impressive.
Was it confirmed it was a live beetle and not one of those Mexican candies?
Yep. It was, I think that one of the musicians hit it or something or held on to it. And then the guy literally took it and ate it.
Nice. All right. For a little 15 minutes.
They put it on the Jumbotron at one point. It was hilarious.
Good for him. Oculus eating of beetle juice.
Ugh.
Well, good, man. Yeah, it's exciting to see that. And I will be there next week for the Rams Chargers preseason game. Both teams in there. We will be allowed at full capacity at this point, barring any crazy health cancellations a week out. Knock on wood. So we'll see. And yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see, last thing before we get into football, I'm interested to see parking because I remember leaving the Rams open practice. There was about 40,000 or so there. And trying to leave those parking lots was not fun with that many. I can't imagine if there's going to be 75,000. So just anyone listening, be prepared for that parking. Plan your whole day as like, okay, this is a day. This is a day event, which is what we want. It's football. Football's back, baby. So I want to start with a negative. I hate starting with negatives.
Just get out of the way. Just get them out of the way early.
Just get it out of the way. What the hell is going on with the Chargers kicking game? Who is going to be the kicker of this team? Because all on occasions where it was bad yesterday, and that's not a good sign considering this has been one of the Achilles heels of this Chargers team for many, many years. What's going on, Dan? Talk me off the ledge.
Yeah, I don't know if I could talk you off the ledge. The kicking game was bad yesterday. There's no way around it. Michael Badgley missed a bunch, although surprisingly he nailed a 55-yarder with some distance to spare. Vizcaino, I mean, honestly, all three kickers missed. I want to say the third kicker, I think, went like 3 for 7 or something like that.
I think you had tweeted Kessman went like 2 for 6, I think.
And to the point where like all kickers were hearing boos from the stands. And to put that narrative in kind of full context, Chargers fans, as you probably know, have been victim of so many heartbreaking defeats due to this kicking game and due to missed kicks. And so I don't think the boos are really a bad thing as much as it's just like them being nervous and scared that it's going to rear its ugly head again. So like, I totally get it. And so like, I was actually, it's interesting hearing it, but then when Badgley hit the 55-yarder, I was like, oh, okay. Like I was so surprised. I was fully expecting it to not even hit the area of the end zone.
Yeah.
But yeah, kicking was
like the ghost of Nate Kading just like hanging around this organization or what?
I don't know. But you heard Brandon
Even
Staley
kickers they release then go on and have good careers elsewhere.
You heard Brandon Staley talk about it afterwards, though. Like, you know, you do want to simulate game action, and that's as close as you can get until a preseason game.
Yeah.
There's a first time kicking in SoFi. That said, like it wasn't a good day for them. There's no way around it, and hopefully, you know, it gets better, and hopefully the competition makes them all better. I saw at least 2 of the 3 kickers after practice staying there late, which is kind of interesting because the 1s and the 2s practiced. And then everybody stopped for a bit. And I noticed that the refs and everybody were staying there. And so I told my wife, like, oh, everybody's leaving, but I'm pretty sure like stuff's still going on.
Yeah.
And then everybody came back and all the 3s are playing, but like literally 2/3 of the fans left thinking it was over. So I just don't think they've been to a training camp before. So it was definitely longer than most training camps, but the kickers have some extra work cut out for them. And Staley said it's not just about kicking field goals. It's also about field position and getting kickoffs going too. So
what's hard with kicking is and what people may not know is it's so mental. It's kind of like golf in a sense. Like
totally,
you can hit all the kicks, you can hit all the flop shots, the drives, but until you're in that moment and until you can clear your mind and you know mentally see it go through the uprights every single time, and you can get the yips. And it seems like these Charger kickers, specifically Mike Badgley, after being the starter for the last few years, has the yips in a sense. And I like Dallas Kessman coming out of college. I thought he was a good addition. I think Tristan Vizcaino has looked pretty good at times. So you hope one of them starts to break away from the pack and it's not a on cut day, like who's the lesser of 2 evils kind of thing.
Yes.
We don't want to roll into week 1. Yeah. The lesser we don't want to roll into that in week 1. So, but at this point, unfortunately, fans, really nothing to report good wise of would you say anyone's leading the clubhouse right now?
No. Like it's a coin flip at this point. I will say I do like both Kessman and Vizcaino's leg, like in terms of like power more than I do Badgley.
Yeah.
There's a little more oomph behind those, but
I would say at this point they would be ahead of Badgley considering they're cheaper. I mean, if Badgley's not far and away better, then you're going to pay the cheaper guy. So
yeah. And one thing, and you mentioned like the pressure of that. And I think that kind of is similar to kind of like the kick return, especially punt return position. Yeah. Like you can simulate as much as you want, just do a bunch of fair catches and all kind of stuff and catching in practice. But like a live game punt return is very different than just a random practice one.
Totally. 100%. So this preseason game is going to be big coming up on Saturday to see. I'm curious if they'll do like each kicker gets a game or if they'll do situate because there's 3 preseason games, or if they'll do, situationally, like each one gets a quarter, or if because sometimes it's about rhythm too. So it'd be hard if, Badgley gets a kickoff and then he gets 1 field goal attempt and then immediately on the next attempt, they go to a different guy. So I'm curious to see what they'll do with that.
I know Staley did talk about it afterwards in the press conference, and he said that they were going to kind of rotate and give everyone a chance. So I don't think it's going to I think they were asking about like, oh, is Badgley number one because he kicked first? And he was responding with basically, no, he's not the first one. We're just going kind of in order. And next one will be some other guy. And we'll kind of just keep doing rotations and kind of get as much analysis as we can from these guys.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, out with the negative, in with the positive. Justin Herbert, from all indications from your Twitter account, looked fantastic. Talk to me about our boy Herb.
Folks are talking about, and you talked about him being off. Again, off does not mean bad, but off means not perfect.
Yep.
Justin Herbert was darn near perfect yesterday. And for, I want to say the first like 15 or so throws, 100% completion percentage. I think the only reason why the first incomplete pass happened was it was a drop, but it was right in his hands. I forget who it was catching.
I think it was Jalen Guyton. You know, take a shot. Take a shot if you've heard that before.
Yeah, but man, Justin Herbert looked great. He threw some dimes yesterday that should get Chargers fans excited. And for folks who were thinking or getting a little nervous that he was maybe not going to have a good preseason or something, like, no, take it away. Justin Herbert looks fantastic. He threw some great throws. He threw an awesome back shoulder throw to Mike Williams for like 25 yards. Great touchdown to Mike Williams, to a touchdown to Keenan Allen. And honestly, my favorite throw of his the entire day wasn't even a completed pass, but he threw it to Donald Parham in the back of the end zone, which when's the last time Chargers saw a tight end go deep down the field back of the end zone? And he placed it only spot Parham could even get to it. Hit both of his hands. He dropped it, but I was impressed. He did throw one interception.
Parham.
I know. He threw one interception, but the play was kind of already dead. That was when that DJ ran back to the apartments without the A. But otherwise, I mean, Justin Herbert's the real deal. He looked as advertised. He looked great. And you heard Matt Money Smith and DJ talk about him constantly. And you see it when it's live. You see kind of the pop behind some of his throws where you're like, some quarterbacks can't do that.
Yeah.
And some of the sideline throws he makes, that's a pick six if Philip Rivers throws it.
Yeah. That's great to hear. And I have said that he has looked off in camp. And some guys too, though, are just gamers and they're not great practicers. Not meaning they don't put effort forth or try hard. They just, they use practice as their canvas to make mistakes, try new things, and then they put it all together come game day. Because we talked about even last year, Justin Herbert was like third or fourth in training camp in terms of how he was progressing, which is why I know everyone hated on Anthony Lynn, but he was not looking great in camp. Other than we saw the throws on Hard Knocks of him hitting, nets, but that's not what you see in 11-11s. We didn't see any of that because none of us were there. But from what we heard from beat writers and the team is he just wasn't, not that he looked horrible, but just wasn't there yet. But then we see him in games and it's like, how is he not there yet? Look at this guy.
Well, I will say, like, I think depending on who you talk to, because like when we had Chris Harris Jr. on the show on Chargers Unleashed, like, and he said within a few minutes, he's like, dude, that guy's got it. I think exactly what he said, but I'm paraphrasing. Like, that guy's got it. Like, just throws he does that nobody else can make. And so, like, people saw the potential of him early in camp. But again, he's a rookie, and you don't want to stunt his growth and put him out there and all of a sudden butcher his entire career. And so they let it go. But, like, he also did pretty well in training camp, all things considered. And so, it's fair to say he was a little off because, like, he wasn't perfect, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But looking at it in a microcosm of just like, all right, yesterday was the closest thing we can get to like a real game time feel. Herbert was on command. He was spinning it all over the field. And I think, normally we talk about the defense winning. The offense won yesterday, and it wasn't close.
Wow. Love it. So I don't know if that's a concerning thing because we've talked about too. Like, I think I would be more concerned if the defense didn't look crisp, which they have in camp. So just comment on that, I guess. Was it that the defense looked bad, or was it that, okay, no, the offense is just a damn exciting unit and the defense has their work cut out for it week in, week out, whoever plays against them?
It's a good question. Brandon Staley talked about it at the press conference, and I'm referring to this a few times because I watched it recently. This is the deepest wide receiving core he's ever had as a coach, which says something because he's had some good teams, and he's not saying it just to blow smoke, but like there is a ton of talent. And you see Mike Williams, who I think is another one of those gamers where like, does he run the crispest routes or whatever? Like, no, but the guy always makes plays.
Fair point. Yeah.
Keenan Allen is always open, had a touchdown yesterday. Like, the dude's amazing. Jared Cook and Donald Parham both are absolute mismatches, and you're going to see a ton more of them than you will previous years of the tight end group.
Mm-hmm.
The defense looked good, but like the offense, I think, just executed.
Yeah,
and it was, to be honest, though, like that's okay, because we've heard so much about this Chargers defense just owning it, and like you'd expect that, but it's nice to see the offense kind of punch back. And when I talked to Tom Telesco last week, he had mentioned like he loves the competition battles going back and forth because that simulates what you're going to go up to in the regular season, and to have that in practice every day. Like a lot of teams don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kansas City, for example, their offense is unreal.
Yeah.
Their defense is not at the level of what this Chargers defense is, both from a personnel perspective or scheme perspective.
100%. Yeah, that's a good point. And one that we'll see continue to get better too. And I've talked about many times too with Brandon Staley's led defenses is the scheme is great. He puts players in positions to win, but what makes it so lethal is the adjustments they can make. And in a training camp simulated game practice where you're trying to get a look at all your depth, you're not able to make adjustments with your ones because then, well, guess what? The twos are rolling out there. The threes are rolling out there. So this would look very different if it was a full 60-minute game with halves that all of a sudden he goes in and say, okay, offense is doing this. Let's adjust. So for anyone freaking out, oh no, Brandon Staley's the deep coordinator. The defense got burned last night. They had what, probably 20 plays they went up against ish.
No, and his defense also has been doing very well against this offense the entire training camp. So, like, if the offense wins a day, cool. Like,
that's a good thing. We want the offense to win a day. This is a good thing. So let's look at the offense quickly because we've talked about it a bunch. Running backs.
Yes.
This is not a call up by any means, but you've been very implicit. You think Justin Jackson is the number 2. I said, I think yesterday on Saturday, cold beers and hot takes, that I think Josh McKelly is going to end up being running back 2. That much to the chagrin, I'm sure, of many Charger fans and the disbelief of many. How'd the backs look yesterday?
Backs look good. Joshua Kelly looked very good. He looked good. He had juice. He had some pep in his step. Shout out to Ryan Dyrud at Ryan Dyrud LAFB on Twitter for getting this one, at least showing out that Joshua Kelly has a chance to take a number 2. Honestly, all 3 running backs looked good. Oh, I should say 4, but the top 3, in my opinion, were Roundtree. Well, I guess take Eckler aside for a sec.
We know what he is. Yeah,
yes.
He is.
But Joshua Kelly, I think, had the most standout plays. He flashed a lot of good hand plays out of the backfield, especially a couple that he had in traffic that I was not expecting him to be able to catch. He had some good runs. Josh Kelly probably was a standout of practice yesterday, and happy for him because he has it. Yeah. And if we're looking, the thing that's hard to figure out with this running back group in terms of like who RB2 is, Joshua Kelly is nothing like Austin Eckler. Like they are polar opposite players, but like in a good way.
Yeah.
Justin Jackson is kind of like an Austin Eckler, like kind of. He has some of those playmaking abilities, but he also is a little bit bigger. So like it just like if Austin Eckler goes down, they need to have somebody like a Justin Jackson. But if Austin Eckler doesn't go down, do they need a Justin Jackson type?
Yeah.
And so what risk are you willing to take? And so that's the part that I kind of wonder where they're going to go. And I just don't see, I mean, it's hard. I don't see Roundtree missing it. They just drafted him.
Totally.
I think they're keeping 4 running backs.
I was going to say, I think we're going to live in a world where they keep 4 and go from there. And if they need to use one as trade bait later on, or because I don't think any of these 4 would make it through waivers to the practice squad either.
No, Justin Jackson's a really intriguing guy that you could potentially get something for.
Yeah. And I just talked about my last segment with Cam DaSilva with the Rams, how their running back room has a lot of youth and depth. And I think they're going to wait till these first round of cuts happen to maybe add someone. And if the Chargers were to cut one, Sean McVay's old friend, Brandon Staley, I think they'll come snatching one of those guys up. So I don't think the Chargers will get the opportunity to add him to the practice squad. So, but yeah, it's good to hear they all look good. They all do good things differently. As I've said many times, I think what's really going to separate these guys is how they can catch out of the backfield. And so it's good to hear they did that. I wonder if Josh Kelly trained with like Demetric Felton in the offseason, his former teammate at UCLA, because that was Demetric's role at UCLA. Josh Kelly was the 30 carry guy. And then last year at UCLA, Demetric Felton became the workhorse back. and kind of changed his role. But now, obviously, going to the pros, Dimitri Felton trained as a receiver at the Senior Bowl, is drafted as a quote unquote receiver. So I wonder if him and Josh got together and were like, let's get those hands up because that's going to make you a better back in the NFL.
Probably, maybe. I hope so. But yeah, Josh Kelly had a very good day. The running game in general had a good day. The run blocking was good. There was obviously some plays on the defense as well. But yeah, running backs looked good yesterday. Can't say anything about it.
Good stuff. So let's talk about a quick scare, but a sigh of relief. Two, I don't know if we should call them injuries. I don't want people to gasp and turn this off and throw their whatever they're listening to against the wall. But Corey Linsley and Kenneth Murray both went down in practice, were attended to by trainers. We were told afterwards by Brandon Staley that both were not concerning. If it was a real game situation, probably would have gone back in and played. They're just, there's no sense pushing guys at this point. So that was a huge sigh of relief. But when it happened, what was the thought in the building? Could you hear the pins dropping? Could you hear the anger in the building when those guys went down?
Oh, yeah. To be honest, I don't think folks saw the Corey Linsley thing. I didn't even see the Corey Linsley thing until after the fact. And I was like, I don't see 63 out there. Like, where is he? And then you didn't see him. And then I started scrolling through and I saw that he was taken out with trainers. So like that one, not that I was very concerned, but I didn't see it. So that was more like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then the Kenneth Murray one, when that happened, fluke injury, he was running the sidelines, tackling, I think it was Jared Cook. And I think he tripped and he slightly tweaked his ankle, which I didn't see the tweak until literally like 10 minutes ago, maybe 20 minutes ago.
Dan has it up on his Twitter feed now if you guys want to check it out.
Yes, and it wasn't that bad. But when I saw it live, I was more nervous because he gets hurt on the ground, laying there for a while. Trainers come over, laying there for probably 5 minutes, gets up gingerly, walks around, goes to the bench. And my first impression was thinking like, please don't be ACL. Please don't be MCL. Like, don't be the knee. Don't be the knee. And then when I heard it was the ankle, I was like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. And the fact that he's walking, like, made me feel a bit better. Then he goes later on, he's up, like, high-fiving his teammates and kind of talking to folks. And one of the things I actually really liked about Kenneth Murray that he did yesterday, even though he wasn't playing, he had his helmet to his head, listening to every single play that was going on. And this kid's special. Yeah. I'm telling you that he's a good one. So thankfully he's fine. Could it be like a week thing? Maybe. But again, this is preseason. Like, stop. Shut him down. It doesn't matter. That's the whole point.
Shut him down. See you September 12th.
Yep. Same with Corey Linsley. Like, he's so vital to this team. And I was going through videos and I was watching him go up against Linval Joseph. And for how big of a man Linval Joseph is, I'm watching Corey Linsley with his stature just pushing him up. I was like, I'll post a video later. I was like, I'm watching. I'm like, how is this happening? Linval Joseph has like 50 pounds on this dude.
Yeah. Outside of Justin Herbert, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you think Corey Linsley is the most important man on this offense outside of Justin Herbert? Or would you go to the tackle? Would you go to someone else?
I think it has to be Slater, because I think the blind side is an area where if you don't see that's going to see so much disruption. And Justin Herbert, like if penetration happens up front, like he's mobile enough to where he can kind of move around it. But if it's coming behind you without you being able to see it, that's, I think, going to be the issue. And that's why we saw so many problems in the past years. I mean, Corey Linsley is super important, but in terms of like how far this team will go, I think it's more important that we get performance out of Rashawn Slater.
Yeah. For the longevity of this team, I agree with you. For this season, I would argue Linsley, just because I think the style of quarterback Herbert is, and he can absolutely evade, pressure from the outside or pressure in the middle and move outside. But with this deep ball, being able to step up in the pocket, I just think is so important. And if you have guys coming up the middle and you have to be on the run all the time, those deep passes to Guyton and Tyron Johnson aren't there. So, but all are equally important. It's not a fair.
They're
choice.
Both important.
Yeah,
please, for the love of all things holy, keep them safe.
Yes. September 12th. See you then. I don't want to see you in pads again the rest of the training camp. I don't care.
And speaking of Slater looked very good. Rashawn Slater, number 13 overall, looked very good yesterday. I saw him go up against Joey Bosa, looked good. Joey Bosa may have gotten the better of him once. I have to go back and look. It's so refreshing to like feel confident about your tackles.
Oh yeah.
As a Chargers fan. Because like we have gone through misery for so long. And for him to look this good against this skill set of a Staley defense.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good sign. Like, you can't not be excited.
Oh yeah.
If he's winning against Joey Bosa, because he's not going to go up many guys better than him.
Maybe not one at the true. Well, now that he's an edge and not a defensive lineman, I guess there's a few other very good ones. So, two of which he'll play in the same division. So let's end with this, Dan. 2 final questions for you, and I'll ask them both so you can work through phrasing them. Otherwise, it might be unfair. But overall, the offensive line unit, how did they look? And then the unit that hasn't really got a lot of talk because it's really hard to judge them in camp is the interior defensive line unit. You mentioned Linval Joseph, but Jerry Tillery, Justin Jones. So both units going against each other. So it's hard to say one did good or one did horrible. But overall, I guess, how did those 2 units look, and how should fans feel going into the season with those starters?
It's a good question. It's also a very important component of this team. Mm-hmm. And interior defensive line actually showed up yesterday. Chris Rumph, Diamond in the Rumph, has been very good as of late. I think he had at least 2 sacks, maybe 3. I'm not quite sure.
Was he playing in the interior, or was he just doing switches from like the outside?
I think he was doing stunts from the interior.
Okay.
And he looked good. He looked very good.
Love it.
Justin Jones also had a great day. I'm not sure how much of that was Justin Jones or how much of that was maybe poor offensive line play from the interior offensive line. Mm-hmm. But Justin Jones also looked really good. Linval Joseph, again, like, the guy's not going anywhere. Like, as long, like, his goal is to just like stay there, maybe push up a bit, penetrate, and that's it. Yeah. So the interior defensive line looked good. To be honest, I think interior offensive line is more of a concern for me. Not that it is a concern, but I'm more concerned of the interior defensive line or offensive line than I am the outside. Like, I think O'Day Boucher, Matt Filer, Corey Lindsley, like those 3. I'm not worried about Corey Lindsley, but that trio is who I think needs the most gelling still. But otherwise, no, interior look good. Chris Rumph, I think he's going to be good. I really like what he brings. I love his body type, archetype. Mm-hmm. He has that Leonard Floyd build that I think Brandon Staley was like, this guy could work. Yeah,
he's gonna be a lot of fun. Did you see Jerry Tillery at all out there? I know that's just a lot of fans are just, what's going on with Tillery?
I saw Jerry Tillery. I didn't see any splash plays that made me write anything down or type anything out. I got to go back and watch all the videos. I literally haven't even gotten a chance to go back and watch them yet. By the time I got home after everything this past week, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I will say one guy that I am very excited for. I know a lot of Chargers fans are Asante Samuel Jr. Mm-hmm. Remember, he is a rookie and he has some very, very good plays, but he also is a rookie and he will get beat. And so yesterday, for example, he had a great play against Keenan Allen, had a great play against a few guys, but he also got beat on a double move by Mike Williams in the corner of the end zone for a touchdown. And that's okay. I think what's more important than if he gets beat or not is what happens after he gets beat.
Yeah.
Did he come back? Is he fazed by it? Does he worry about it? Does he try to overcompensate? No. Like, I think he has the mentality where, like, he's fine he hates making mistakes, but if he does, he's damn sure not making it a second time.
Yeah.
And so he has that mentality. He's okay with learning. He's okay with getting coached up and then moving on. So he's a rookie. He's probably going to get burned a few times, but I think I can put money on it that he will win far more than he loses. And letting him lose, he has a mentality where, like, he'll take that personal. Mm-hmm. And you want that out of a corner. Like, imagine Derwin James getting beat. Do you think he's going to be like, oh, crap? Or, he's not good. Yeah, like that. He's never forgetting that.
Yeah.
Asante had the same kind of vibe to him. And it was cool seeing him go out with all the rookies, like seeing everything for the first time at SoFi. Like, a lot of these players haven't been in there for like a game feel yet.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's a ton of like feedback afterwards that you got from a lot of players. We were talking about how exciting and like the energy that fans were bringing. And just it was a really good day for Chargers fans and for the Chargers organization and for the players, like even for the families. Like, this has been a hard year and a half for everyone.
Oh yeah.
And so this is probably one of the better days for a lot of them, just to be able to like be home, like at your stadium and seeing all of the work you put in and like how excited everybody is, like for good reason. This is a damn good team.
Yeah. 100%, man. That's a good way to end it. Cause it's, for context, it's just a good feel of a day, getting out there, playing football in front of friends, family, fans, showing your athletic ability in the most beautiful stadium the world has to offer. So good stuff. Glad to hear it. Dan Wolkenstein, Charters Unleashed, part of the LAFB Network family. Thank you for the insight into your vision of what you saw at MFest. Appreciate you as always, my man.
You are very welcome. Shout out to LaDainian Tomlinson and Sean Merriman for coming as well. We saw him. He was interviewed by Chris Harry. It was a blast. Thanks for having me on, Ryan. This is so fun. I cannot wait. Football is just around the corner. We get preseason.
Woo!
This is the best time of year, man. Let's get this thing going.
Oh yeah. We'll be on live all week, I'm sure, plenty of times together. So we'll rap back and forth about RB2s and who's going to be out there. But brother, appreciate you as always. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk soon. I know. You too. Thank you so much for having me on, Ryan. We'll talk soon. All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Huge shout out to Cameron DaSilva. Huge shout out to Dan Wolkenstein. Appreciate those guys as always. Biggest shout out to you, the listeners, for tuning in and giving this show time of your busy days and schedules. Plenty more coming all through training camp. Thank you all. Please, again, subscribe wherever you listen, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Play, Amazon Music, or on YouTube, or both. Helps us out if you do both, at LAFB Network on YouTube. Hit that subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. You know when all of our live shows go live, all of our podcasts are uploaded, you'll be notified. Thank you all. Enjoy the week. Let's keep doing this thing. Get you the best content possible. We'll be talking next show. Some great guests lining up, all teas. We'll be talking UCLA and USC as well, as those practices have commenced for their fall schedule. So we can get into that with some guests as well who have been there live. I myself will also be at Trojans camp here coming up and trying to check out Bruins camp as well. You guys all have a fantastic week. This is the LA Football Podcast. I am Ryan Dyrud. We'll talk to you all here soon.